tear, it falls and hits the ground. A tree, it falls without a sound. A bird, it calls and sends you home. A man, he sits in the cold all alone.
Hi, Shelley. Welcome to the Joy of Sunflowers. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
Hi, thank you so much for having this event. It's so important, and it's something that's really missing in our society is understanding about pregnancy loss and stillbirth. And so I'm really honored to be here. And so my name is Shelley Rahim, and I am the founder of New Mother Caregiving. I'm a postpartum caregiver. I'm a birth doula, and I'm also a postpartum chef. And my experience with miscarriage and stillbirth and pregnancy loss is in my professional career. So my very first, so I became a prenatal yoga teacher back in 2007. That was like sort of my first calling into working with families during the perinatal year. And then I became a birthing from within childbirth educator. And birthing from within is very soulful. It's very practical preparation for birth, but it also goes into the psychology of the giant life change that couples will go through. And the almost even like we get into almost like mourning the loss of who we were to make space for who we're becoming. So the tools and the personal growth that birthing from within sort of primed me for was perfect for working with families of loss. And so interestingly, my very first doula job was with one of my yoga students who found out that her baby was going to be born still, or if so the baby had a fatal diagnosis. And so she was planning to carry the baby to the full term, but she knew that the baby would not survive. And so they hired me to be their doula for both the birth and the death. And so we did all of the preparation for the birth, getting her body ready, but also the psychological preparation to prepare for this event. So we did a lot of rituals. We did a lot of connecting with the baby and a lot of deep personal healing along the way. And then, of course, I supported her through the journey and then afterwards. And interestingly, that was back in 2009, and online courses were just starting out. And I had found an online course called Stillbirth Day, and it was a bereavement doula training program. So as I was supporting her, I was actually educating myself on how to become a bereavement doula. So then I became a bereavement doula. And since then, I've supported mothers with stillbirth and, certainly through miscarriage. But the main thing that I think I bring to the summit is that mothers who, or anybody who experiences a miscarriage or late-term pregnancy loss or stillbirth or infant loss, they are postpartum and they need care. And it's because it's so shrouded in silence, it's something that most people don't know how to give care to a postpartum mother with a baby, let alone without a baby. So I'm here to talk about that.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the main reasons why I was so glad to have you on, because it's something that's so overlooked, isn't it? Like postpartum, I mean, I had 3 children first off before I had losses, and it really was just this thing that was kind of swept under the rug. You kind of got like a little sort of taste of what postpartum was, and the doctor kind of would tell you a little bit of stuff to do, but then there wasn't that in-depth kind of, you need to nurture your body because you're trying to nurture something else, or just that you're actually in recovery and your body has to recover from what you've just been through. And then going through losses, my body it changed again and needed to recover again. And I didn't even the first loss, I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like there's a postpartum to loss as well. I didn't even realize I would have to go through pains and like labor and then a delivery and then postpartum. I did not think there would be this whole system to pregnancy loss. I just thought, oh, I'm going to lose the baby. I just thought it was just going to be a heavy period like they tell you. So I just love that what you're doing and that you're actually offering that support, because yeah, so many women just don't even know that this is the process through loss as well as having a living child at the end. Like it's so horrible that we have to go through that process. So walk me through like what you sort of do with your clients and like even down to like the nutritional kind of things as well, because yeah, a lot of us don't even think about the nutritional things that we need to do to kind of boost our bodies back up and recover.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and validating your experience. Because even just the physicality of it isn't even addressed, right? Where a lot of women actually have to go through the labor process and then not have a baby in the end. And so then there's the physical aspect, but then there's also the emotional and the grieving, or I mean, even if the baby wasn't necessarily wanted, or if it's a relief that this happened, it's still traumatic. So it's a traumatic experience, however it happens, right? And so I kind of created like a framework for caregivers. And so this is tricky though, because in our society, because people don't know what to say or how to be around a mother of loss or a family, what to say, and they tend to say the wrong things, that as a self-preservation mechanism, families or mothers will just not really tell anybody, because then they have to kind of deal with other people's reaction, and it's not helpful. It actually makes it harder to recover emotionally, or you feel more alone, because after you lose a baby, you feel alone. Your body, you had a companion with you inside of you, and suddenly there's no baby and you feel alone. And then when people don't show up for you the way you need them to, and you don't even know what you need from them because you've never gone through this, or if you have, you still don't know what you need from people. And so you're alone, and then they don't really show up, and you actually feel more lonely. Like, I've got people around me, but they don't know how to like support me. And so we just don't tell people. We're like, I'd just rather not tell anybody because I can't deal with more pain right now. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, and it's so true. Even like in motherhood after having a living child, like it's the same thing in terms of like you want support, but you don't know how to ask for it. You don't know how, like, what kind of support you need. But yeah, with pregnancy loss, it's even more so, because it's almost like there's a silence. At least with a child, when you have a living child, you get, oh, congratulations, and you get all these messages. So there's that opening to kind of maybe ask for something, or maybe see if someone has advice or something like that. But when you go through loss, a lot of the time it's silent. Like I probably only received about 3 messages from loved ones. And I think a lot of people are very similar in that way. And it's not that I wasn't loud, because I went to social media, I posted it everywhere, like that I'd been through loss. And yeah, it's just so quiet, because I think people just don't know what to say to you and don't want to go into it.
Yeah, that's why I'm starting to really get it out there now. Like, my whole Instagram account is about caring for postpartum mothers. And even that, still, like, we don't know, as a society, Western society doesn't even know how to take care of postpartum mother with a living baby. So now I'm going to start out there, just like, here's what you do. And I'm not the only one, but I'm adding that on to, postpartum care with living babies. But I did create a framework, because if people know, just once it's like with caring for postpartum moms, when I tell people, like, she's given birth 3 days ago, she really can't digest a lasagna. And I know it's convenient to make. I've done it myself, believe me. Like I'm not a saint. I've given lasagnas to postpartum moms. But like once I learned it, I was like, well, duh. Like she just gave birth. Her digestion is in a very compromised state right now. She just needs like bone broth and congee and like really simple things to digest. And but if you aren't told this, then we just do what's easy. A lasagna is easy to make. It'll stay in her fridge for a week. Like that's kind of sad too, right? Like let's bring her fresh food every day. Um, but I mean, we're all part of this society that doesn't really know how to take care of moms. But once we say it, like once I say it right, it makes sense, right? Like, oh yeah, I guess
Yeah.
lasagna isn't ideal. It's the same with taking care of a mother after miscarriage. But before I start talking about, um, you know, giving people tools, practical tools, simple things that are like once you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, duh. I want to say that there's a lot of people, probably the majority of our society, doesn't have anybody to come and take care of them because we live in a society where everybody works all the time. Our maternal elders are holding down careers. They can't just take a month off. They can't take 2 weeks off if their daughters or daughter-in-laws like have a miscarriage or that's the reality is that there's not a lot of space for caregiving. And so I created an ebook of which you guys will have access to with a coupon code. It'll be very cheap. But in this ebook, I give people tools for caregiving for the mother after loss and the whole family is grieving. But I also have a whole DIY section. If you don't have anybody that's going to be coming and taking care of you and nurturing you, how can you nurture yourself? What are some really simple things that you can do for yourself that will really help you heal?
That is so important. That's amazing that you're doing that. Like, I wouldn't have even like thought of that. Like when you're going through the process, you really just don't consider yourself and like taking care of yourself or any of those things. And I know it's like, duh, but yeah, it's just not something that comes in your mind when you're going through that loss, grief space. So that's
Yeah,
really,
you're kind of just in survival mode, and you just survive and you just kind of white knuckle it and then try to just get back to life, as that's what I think a lot of people try to do. But when you have a loving caregiver that understands what you're going through, even if they haven't been through it personally, they just have to have an empathic heart and love for you. And a few of these, just a couple little tips that I'm going to give you, and it can make the world of a difference in how a mother recovers and the whole family. So the framework I created I call it like 4 steps to caregiving after miscarriage. So they're kind of like steps, but they kind of are interwoven. The first step when you're going to go and support somebody, either through the whole miscarriage, so sometimes they last for days or even like weeks, right? Or sometimes they're a medical event and you're going, if you're a partner and you're going to be by her side through it, the D&C. So if you're going through it, or if you're meeting her and you're going to be the caregiver afterwards. So maybe she already went through it, she's home from the hospital, or the ordeal is done, and now she's like postpartum, and you kind of come into the scene. So this is how it can work. As a bereavement doula, I prepare them and we walk through it together, and I meet them on the other side, like the full spectrum. So wherever you're at on that spectrum, this is what you need to know. The first step is you have to have self-awareness. And so what I mean by that is you need to know that you are entering into a person's life at a very intense moment. And it's a very different space. It's almost like when I'm a birth doula, and when I'm at a death, either it's like a death of a loved one or a death of a baby, or I'm at a birth, it's a different kind of energy different energy you're in. So you kind of have to prepare yourself sort of energetically to enter into that space, a different kind of psychic space. And so you prepare yourself, and you start by, creating the intention. So let's say, oh my gosh, I just got the call. I got to go help my friend. All right, center yourself and set yourself an intention before you go. And so for me, I always, before I go to a birth or support anybody through something like a loss, I always say a prayer, or like I kind of like meditate, take a few breaths. It doesn't have to be elaborate. And for me, I say the Bodhisattva prayer, and it is a Buddhist prayer, and I'm not Buddhist, but it just kind of resonated with me, and I can share that with you if you'd like. It's also in the Caregiving book, but it's basically like, let me be a vessel for healing. Let me be like, allow me to step into this family and be a guide for them, and be a guard to protect them, and be a boat for them to cross the flood. And, just let me be, let my words, let my actions, let my presence be grounding and healing for this family. And then I say the Amrita prayer, which is, may they be happy, may they be peaceful, may they be free from suffering. It's an ancient Buddhist chant, and it's very simple, and that's, but if you're a Christian, maybe you're connected with the Lord's Prayer, or you have, your own way of really entering into a place of self-service to humanity, and putting your own, everything that is in about you is now no longer important for the time that you're with this family. And so the first thing is set that intention. The second part of self-aware is to be present while you're there. So turn off your phone, put it in airplane mode. If at all possible, I'm so blessed to have a husband who's been really accommodating of my career. So when I have to go, I'm like, I might be gone for 3 hours, but I might be gone for 3 days. So you got the kids, you got to take care of everything for like, I have to be present. I can't be like, oh, okay, I got to go to the soccer game in an hour. So I'll come in and check on, my friend who's miscarrying, and then I'll go to the soccer game. I'll come back. Like, that's not going to really work. And if that's all you can do, then do what you can do. But what I'm talking about is like really just going in all with the family. So try to like see if you can't, then say, okay, I've got 3 hours. If all you can do is 3 hours, then 3 hours of no kind of connection with the outside world, enter into that like psychic space with them fully. When we get pulled out with our phone, or if we're like, well, I'll just check a few emails, like we can't be fully present. And it's our presence, just being present, a physical body there with the intention to heal, is healing for them. So that's the other thing. And then the other part of self-aware is constant self-monitoring when you're there. Woo, this is a discipline and a lifelong practice. So, we might get triggered, right? Like, especially if you are the one that's a first responder, right? So like, it's happening suddenly, you rush over there and it's a scene. It's like, whoa, you got to be in like warrior woman mode right now. And so you kind of like, when you're in that warrior woman mode, yeah, like that's like, nothing else matters but like the safety of this mother, and so you're in that mode. But once that settles, then you have to kind of like watch your thoughts, because you might be triggered. Your own losses might come up. Your own birth might come up, birth trauma. Like, you can get triggered a little bit of here and there. And so you kind of have to watch your thoughts and be, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna let that go. Or if it's something that's like, whoa, write it down so you can kind of like, okay, I need to kind of revisit that after I'm done serving this family. And then you also have to become very mindful and like monitor your physical body, because sometimes, we can start to get a little triggered, like our nervous system can get upregulated when we see somebody in pain, when we see somebody in grief. So we can, as a caregiver, it can be like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. Like I start to get like, like, oh, but then it's like, just we have to just like, okay, I can see my heart is really racing right now. This isn't going to be helpful. I just need to kind of go take a few breaths, and then whatever your practice. I taught yoga for 15 years, so I have yoga like techniques, just a breath or two. Mainly just, like I said, be self-aware. We just got to know when it's happening. And then once we know, oh, whoa, like I'm really tense right now. Let it go. So we become like a witness. We're like a witness. We're a witness to this family, which is so important. People need to be witnessed through hardship. They need to be seen. And then when they're seen, they're understood. Like somebody gets me, they witness me. That's why midwives are just so valuable. They watch you, they get it, and so we are like that. Like a bereavement doula is like a midwife to the birth and the death. So we're witnessing the family, but we're also witnessing ourselves. Because almost when you're in that energy, there's no separation. It's like a symbiotic relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like you become part of that family almost for that period of time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the second part, the second step, so there's that self-awareness. That's a key, like first foundational kind of thing. Then the second thing is physical first. So now you're tending to the mother, and her physical body is like the first thing we have to like make sure is okay. So if you are like a first responder, of course, you're looking for hemorrhage. You're making sure she's, the blood loss isn't too much. And all of these things, you're calling 911. Like I'm not giving medical advice, but I'm just saying if it happens and you happen to be there, we kind of need to have some basic what to do. Right. And so you're making sure that she's not like hemorrhaging or signs of hemorrhage, like of dizzy or kind of getting faintish or and you're making sure that there's no signs of infection too, so fevers and things like that. So you're kind of a guardian of that. You're watching for that her physical safety is that she's okay. So that's first is her physical safety, obviously, and making sure she has the medical care that she needs. But beyond that, so let's say, yeah, she's good physically. You kind of got through that first initial, is she going to be physically okay? And now she's settled, but yes, she's still bleeding. Yes, she's still postpartum. She's grieving, and so she needs care. Her physical body, like you said, I didn't even know what my physical body needed. Her physical body needs care. And so now you need to take care of that. And by that, I mean, you need to nourish her body. And like I said earlier, like, yes, bring over whatever you can bring to feed this mom so she can rest and doesn't have to cook. That's number one. She needs to rest. However, if in my ebook, you'll learn, bone broth would really be great to help her heal. Homemade bone broth,
Yeah.
And my recipes are I've been making bone broth for over 30 years, and like it's so good. You can drink it with a mug, and it's like, it's so flavorful and like delicious. And I've got like a turmeric ginger kind of Ayurvedic bone broth, and I've got it's just somebody making that for you and like feeding that is so healing to your body. You need that collagen, you need the gentle protein, the amino acids, and then you also want to you want to replenish her iron stores. Like she's just lost, rebuild the blood supply. So things like nettle and red raspberry leaf tea, make sure she's got that around the clock in a thermos, ready to go so she can sip it, and this will help her womb to re-strengthen and her body to heal. Then there's other recipes in my ebook that are like, this is the perfect post-miscarriage meals that she could eat for a couple of days, and so you're tending to her physical nourishment to help her recover from the experience, but also to help her reproductive system. So there's also a component of in my book about what are some foods she can eat after she's gotten through it to actually start rebuilding her reproductive system and re-strengthening and revitalizing if she'd like to try again. So it's all nutrition is a very, very important part of the recovery. So the physical, but then physical is also the physical component here, which is the second step. She needs warmth. Her body needs warmth because once the baby goes out and now it's empty inside her womb, there's a quality of coldness in the body. And she may actually feel cold, but it's more like an energetic, like coldness. It's like, oh, the baby's gone and it's empty and cold. And so what I do is I take, I like to use, so I have this like, it's like a rice and lavender shoulder pack, and that's exactly what it is. And there's links in the ebook, but there's also links on my Instagram page for it. It's a kind of it's like 4 pounds of rice and lavender. So you put it in the microwave. It's actually the perfect shape for the womb. And you put it on her womb and it brings warmth into her body. And in that, you can also use an electric heating pad if you don't have that. And you can also make your own. And I have the instructions in my ebook. You just take a pillowcase. You pour like 4 pounds of rice in there. If you have lavender, great. You don't have to have lavender. Put a rubber band on it and put it in the microwave. And you have your own like warmth, like caregiving warmth whoopee. Call it like a womb whoopee. And but when she lays down and you put that on the womb, it just like it really down regulates her nervous system. And you need that nervous system to come down in order for the healing process to happen. This shoulder pack, I can't speak enough about it. It's also really helpful. I always, as a birth doula, I always have it in my birth bag because if that baby has to go to the NICU, the mother's like her chest is like, I need a baby here. Like it's just my baby needs to be here feeling on my chest. And when that baby's gone, put that rice pack on her or a heating pad. At the hospital, I usually use a heating pad because I don't have access to a microwave. So I just plug in a heating pad. I put the heating pad on her chest and I put my hand there and I just hold her and I hold her until she can be reunited with her baby. Or maybe the baby won't come back, right? Because sometimes that's what we're dealing with. And these things are huge in helping her feel held and seen and loved and nurtured through these moments. So warmth is really, really big. And warmth is something that is cross-culturally known, like since the beginning of time by all maternal elders, like these women that just knew, like, I need to keep, like, if you look at postpartum care around the world, in Asia and India and Mexico and Africa, they all are like, keep the mother warm, keep her warm, give her warm soups, no cold food, no nothing. And no cold water. That's another part of my protocol to keep so warm. So warmth. And then the other part about the physical part that you're tending to with a mom who has miscarried is touch. So I also, after I warm her womb up, I will bind it very gently with a belly bind. And this is, I'll kind of like massage it too a little bit and with like warm oil, and then I'll put the belly bind on her. And when I say belly bind, eventually I will be selling mine. I make my own with a very soft cloth, and I have tutorials on how to put it on. Because there's a lot of them on the market that are just like stiff and almost like painful and like almost like self-abusive because they're just right
restrictive and rigid. Yeah, I recently got myself like a belly band that I found has been quite like nice. Like it's just like a stretchy material, so it's
yes.
Not too bad. But yeah, I had tried like those like Velcro ones and like the strappy, like they're so uncomfortable. And I've got like diastasis recti, so my abs are just apart. And yeah, I tried to use them, and it just caused displacement, and then I just was in more pain. And yeah, I then decided to just not wear anything, after my first few pregnancies, and I was in so much pain and discomfort because everything was just kind of sagging. It felt like this massive weight, just obviously because all your organs are just going back into place and just dropping. So every time I was walking, I just felt this like real heaviness and kind of like that horrible low pit feeling. And I think, the same is when you lose a baby as well. Even like with my pregnancy loss, I didn't even think to put a heat pack on, and I definitely thought of that when I had my living children. But I didn't think of it when I was having my loss. And I remember feeling that empty, cold, like I did not feel good at all, in terms of that physical thing. And, you just wouldn't think about it. Like, it's just not something that computes. But it makes sense because there was something in there that was growing, that had energy, that had, that heat, and now it's not there. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, what I'll do is I'll include a link, because I really just can't recommend most of the binders that are on the market, because they are stiff, and they're like corsets, and like people put them on with the wrong intention to like get skinny and lose weight. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, and I have a video, so I'll give you guys the video. And in the video, since I don't have my binds ready for sale yet, I'm still like working with my seamstress on like how we're going to mass produce once I start promoting it. But I'll put the video there because you can also use, like you said, a very stretchy, if you know what a Mobi wrap is, some of those wraps just to hold the baby. If you have a Mobi wrap, I show you how to use that in the video. You can put it on yourself, and I also show how to put it on a mama. And so that's the kind of fabric we're talking about, but there is a proper way to put it on too. So I will include that. So anybody who's listening who that sounds like they want to do that, they can do that. Yeah, so there's nutrition and hydration, the warmth, and then there's belly binding. And then the last part about touch is like physical touch is so healing, so maybe it's just a hug, extending your arms out to just hold somebody and let them melt into your arms and maybe cry into your bosom. Or perhaps you aren't so bad at massage, give it a try and offer to massage. I have a caregiving course coming out in the fall where I teach people how to do postpartum massage. Maybe you just rub her feet, or you rub her aching back. She's laying on her side, and you just rub her lower back and her sacrum, because the bones can be really sore as they start to come back together. And so, yeah, so there's massage and any kind of touch. The other thing that I also have in my caregiving book is I teach you, if you don't want to do a full body massage, I teach you how to do swaddle the mother. So you put the heat on. She's laying in the bed, right? You put the heat on the womb, and then you just like tuck her in with blankets, like you're cocooning her. And so just you swaddle her up like really tight, like she's in a cocoon, and you put like an eye pack on her, and you just let her like rest there and kind of come back into her body. So that's a big one, the physical stuff. The third step is what I call conscious comforting, the emotional body, the grieving. How can we be there for that, right? So that is a big part of it, and anybody can do this. Maybe some people can't cook, some people can't massage, but we can all just hold space. We can just listen. We don't have to say anything. In fact, it's sometimes better just not say anything, because, we've all said the wrong things unintentionally, myself included. And so what can we say? So holding space for somebody, just knowing that they're grieving, and that it's okay to grieve, and it's not your fault, and this is a natural part of the process, is healing in itself. And when we come to support, we have to really become very good listeners. because I've had to, I mean, it's a constant lifelong discipline working on my listening skills. And so a lot of times when we're listening, but we're simultaneously thinking of what to say, right? I mean, that's just how we are. Or we're simultaneously relating. Oh, that reminds me of like, and we're kind of like, okay, we're good, like they're gonna finish and then we'll say what we're gonna say. So we have to kind of let those thoughts go by like that and come back to active listening. And then asking questions and getting curious is also really, really important. So like you mentioned, you didn't really hear from anybody and you were quite public about it. Just like, how are you? A text, how are you? I'm sorry for your loss. What can I do to help you? And so being silent about it is probably the worst thing we can do. We're not harassing, we're not bothering. By showing that we care, we're actually really helping them by being there and by asking. And so I wrote down some things like what can you say, what not to say. And this is all in the free handout I'm giving you, like a cheat sheet of like what not to say. Um, you know, your baby is in a better place. Like these are all things that feel like they might be well intended, and they may not bother some moms, but in general, you don't know, and they had to have definitely bothered moms. So then, therefore, do not say it if you can, and if you already have, forgive yourself. I've done it too. um, your baby is in a better place. Be grateful for what you have. At least you can get pregnant. It was God's will. It wasn't a real baby yet. You'll be fine in a few days. You're young. You can still have another one. At least you didn't get to know her. It wasn't meant to be. Maybe you should have or shouldn't have. And then the other thing to really try really hard to avoid is sharing your own story. And that's going to be, it's really hard for us as women because that relating is how we like have that compassion, and sometimes how we can feel like we're really helping the mama heal. But when she's in it and experiencing it in that moment, it's not really a very good time to share. I mean, you can say things like, I know how you feel. I've been there. I know this feeling. I remember this really well. But yeah, giving details about yours, or like if that kind of thing, it just, it's not a really good time, like maybe later on down the road, you guys talk about it, but when they're in it, it's better to just kind of like keep your story out because they're still experiencing they're sorting out their story, right? And so our story can influence their story, and that's why when you have that mindfulness, the self-awareness, oh, here's my story coming up. Oh, I can relate to this moment. Whoa, this happened to me. We have that, and so we need to just kind of put it aside. And then things you can say. And again, like this is where it's really encouraging because when we're grieving, and there's so much questioning around, a lot of moms even just don't think they should be grieving, or, there's so many things. So just knowing that like you are, this is a time of grieving, and I'm so sorry. Just saying, I'm so sorry. I'm here for you. I'm sorry you lost your baby. Would you like to talk about it? Some people are really external processors, and just somebody who I really want to hear what this is like for you, like emotionally, if you want to share it with me. And people are like, like, oh my God, like I just feel this and I feel that and I feel this. I had a dream about my baby, like as it was happening, and like, and this is how I felt, and this is how I connected to this baby, and like, I don't know what that means. And just there's a lot there, right? I mean, and it's like somebody who wants to hear those details is like, oh my God, you care to hear about this. I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. I just love you and I'm so sorry, and we really want to take away their pain. And that's the other part that I talk about is like, we're not there to take away the pain. We're just there to witness them as they go through it and hold their hand through the depths of the underworld and bear witness. And this must be so hard for you. And how are you? Like, that's so healing right there. How are you? How are you doing emotionally right now? So these are the things you can say. And yeah, I think so. That's the conscious comforting part, right? We're not trying to fix it, or, we can't fix it. We can just bear witness. And then the fourth part of the fourth part of caregiving after miscarriage is self-care. So you went and cared for this mother. Maybe you were there for a day. Maybe you went and checked on her and spent a few hours each day. Or maybe you were like a mother or a mother-in-law, like me, and I've gone and just stayed for like 3, 4, 5 days to get through the rough part, and then went home. And, like, you need to now take care of yourself. So when we started, we created the intention to just serve, right? And now we're done serving. And so most of us who are like watching this are probably, and most mothers are empathic people. So when you have a lot of empathy, naturally, then it can be really easy to like absorb people's pain. And when we're in that raw space, right, it's so easy to like carry it for them. And so we want to be really careful we're not doing that. And it took me a long time as a doula to learn this, right? Like, I take stuff home from the birth, and like, it would really throw me off emotionally for quite a few days. So then I had to learn some techniques to kind of like let it go. And so this might sound kind of woo-woo-y to some people, but it kind of works for me. I would do like a little ritual after I got home from the birth, or after I was through something really difficult, like a loss or a stillbirth or anything. I would stand on my grass in my yard, barefoot, and I would imagine like kind of all these moments where it was just really intense, with like these cords that I had coming out of my body. I could visualize these cords. It's called a cord cutting ceremony. And I would imagine like, okay, I'm tethered in these ways to this family that I've given so much of my love and my care giving, like, to them. And then I would just kind of like cut those cords, and I would bless them, bless those cords, bless that on its way. And I'd imagine like shears cutting the cord. And then I would imagine myself being encased in like a pink light. Like, I am now like cleansed and protected. Sometimes I would say to myself, but just kind of consciously like, okay, I'm coming back into my own family and my own care. And then a lot of times, it's really important to process it. So if you did witness something really intense as you were caregiving, for me, I am kind of an external processor. So I'd call a girlfriend with permission. I wouldn't expose anything, but what I went through, here's what I experienced. And I'd process it with a girlfriend, or a journal, write about it. So it's important for you, because for me, every birth, every miscarriage, every stillbirth that I experienced, it's a time for me to learn about myself and grow and become a wise woman. We need wise women, we need wise elders. And so it's really important to take that time to be like, wow, how did this change me? How did I grow? And so that's really important to do as part of your self-care. And then some people, maybe they get body work and a massage or something like that. But yeah, so those are the 4, that's kind of like my framework for how to caregive after a miscarriage.
Yeah, I like the last point as well, like with the, you've got to look after yourself as a caregiver as well, after you've come out the space. And that is so true for, anyone who's helping a mother through loss, including like her husband, her partner, because when there's that trauma, and it's trauma, like if you've experienced something intense, then it's trauma. It's like it's something that's sort of seared in your memory, right? So with that trauma, it happens for the fathers, like in a sense, in the same way as the caregivers, because the husband tends to be the caregiver for his wife. Yes, he's going through the loss too, because it's his child, but he's also the caregiver. He's also the sort of guy who's got to be okay, I'm like taking care of you. I've got to make sure that you have what you need. And because he wants to make sure he has a wife at the end, or a partner at the end, who's okay and can function. So yeah, I think that last point I think is so important, and so needed as a reminder for everyone, because I think dads and like caregivers can often get neglected in terms of like they go through it too, because they're having the moment with the mother. They're trying to be there as much as they can be. And yes, sometimes they do say the wrong thing or the right thing, but at least they're saying it with love, and trying to do as much as best they can in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot for the partners because they're also, yeah, and that's how it is for like going through the birth too. Like they're the guardians and they're all these things, but they're also having their own experience. So we've put a lot on them, and that's why it is helpful if we all have these tools and we know somebody. Like if you have my ebook and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm ready now. If somebody I know and love miscarries, I want to just be there for them. I want to take that off the partner, so that he can also rest and grieve and find his way, you know. So hopefully like this will become like this should just become like common practice in families to just know that I need to come and just spend the day with these families and do these things, so they both can heal and rest and really like you can become these kinds of like underworld experiences where we suffer so much. They are where we grow the most. But we do need like guides, we need support in order to have that emotional maturation. Like everybody goes through some hard things in life, and that's ultimately what makes us wise women and like wise fathers and parents for our children someday, because we've done the healing work and we've become stronger and wiser and more compassionate. But we need support. We need and for in my like I feel like the purpose of my entire life is like caregiving is healing. And we have inner healers within us. So what I witness in my practice with whether it's like, you know, stillbirth babies or miscarriage or a live baby, like I'm here, but you are the healer. I'm here to hold space for you to heal yourself. You will have the wound, but you also have the medicine. And I see that in you. I see that potential. And so we rise together. But we need these people in our lives that hold this kind of space. And that's what I'm hoping to share. And I hope that like this little ebook you download will just be like a little toolkit for you to be that for families.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I think you know, a lot of, I mean, anyone who's been through a, you know, a loss has seen that, has witnessed that, or has actually physically been through it. I think, yeah, we have the potential to really be there for someone else who needs that support. I spoke with a lady yesterday, and she was saying that that one of the people that she knew at the time when she was going through her stillbirth came to the hospital, because they had actually been through something similar, and they just apparently they kind of not took over, but did all the things that she needed, you know. And they were like, you know, we can help you take pictures, we can help you do these things. And she was sort of obviously still in shock, not sure what to do, not sure what to say yes to. And they were just like, you know, these, you know, some of these things you're going to regret, like we can do them like gently, you know. And she's so grateful to them. She doesn't actually see them anymore, but she's so grateful to them. And that's the power that people have in other people's lives. Like, even if you're just there for that moment, even if you're just there for that horrible traumatic experience, for that person, you could literally mean the world, because you've changed everything. You've changed their outlook, you've changed their process, you've changed how much trauma they're going through. Something I often say is, you can't make it better with your words, but you can make it worse with words. But if you're there, just as a person, as a body, that is going to make the biggest difference to that person, because you're there, you know. You can't bring back their child, you can't bring back whatever it is they've lost, but you can be in the room for them. And I think it's so beautiful that you are one of those people who do that, and now you're helping other people actually be able to do that as well. And it's like you're creating like a domino effect, you know. You're like the first one, just like,
Yeah.
It's so good. And I really hope people will get that coupon code and will get that book, because I think if all of us, even us, the ones who have been through loss, read that, I think it will not only help us heal, but it will also help us then be there for someone else if that if hopefully it doesn't occur, but majority of the time it probably will come up, it probably will happen within our lives. So if it does, we'll be able to be there and be that person. So thank you for doing that.
Oh yeah. And I mean, whether it's a miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss, death is going to happen, right? And so anybody who you know that's experiencing the loss of a loved one, apply all this, you know, apply all these things. They still need to be nourished. They're grieving. They need someone to listen. And what you said was really important, because if you just show up, you know, with the intention to just be by their side, you're giving them your time. And in this day and age, that is like the most valuable thing, is someone's time. People are so busy. And so you stopped what you're doing. That's how important you are to me. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do these things. I canceled my appointments and I'm coming over. How healing is that?
Yeah, very healing. And it's validating without saying anything, because it's someone going, this is so important, and what you're going through is so traumatic and so intense that I'm literally going to stop my life and come and be with you in this moment, because I know how hard I can understand how hard this would be for you. And that is, yeah, just extremely validating. And it goes so far into the sort of healing for that mother. But yeah, just someone going out of their way to just message you, you know, that
I know.
You know, you feel something. And I definitely felt something when I read the 3 messages I got. But
yeah, that's right. I know.
Yeah, and it's amazing how like just that little moment, and you're just like, wow, they actually, like, they messaged me. That's so nice. Like that, you know. And you may not necessarily want to hear anything, like you might not want to see anybody, but just seeing that someone's actually taken the time to send that message to say, I'm really sorry, and I'm here, and that is just, it's so important.
Yeah. That's where we start, right there. That's all we can do. We start there. And then if we feel like, wow, I can do a little more, I'm going to go buy one of those shoulder pads, you know, and I'm going to bring it over and I'm going to just put it on her womb, you know, maybe just little things, make some bone broth, bring it over.
Yeah. One of the things my husband actually did for me, which was really quite healing, was he put together like a package. Like he went out, he went shopping, and he came back with this like goodie bag thing. And it was like chocolates and like these fuzzy warm socks. And now that you talk about the warmth, like now I understand why they were so comforting. I was like, I want to put them on right now. Like, so, you know, fuzzy warm socks. He got me like this rainbow mug, and he didn't know the meaning of the rainbow in the case.
Yeah.
He just bought a mug with a rainbow on it. And I was like, thank you. And he was like,
I know.
he didn't know. He didn't know at all. And then I explained to him what the rainbow meant, and he was like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like,
no, this is amazing. Oh, not just cool.
Yeah, it actually got smashed recently, which was really sad.
oh,
I know. And I was like, is it an omen? Or is it like a thing?
no,
And then
no.
my mother-in-law just said, you just don't need it anymore. She was like,
Yes.
you don't
Yep.
need to have that anymore. You're healed. Like you're not healed, but you're like you're at that point now where you're okay.
Served
Like,
its purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing is it strengthens our relationships, right? So caregiving like this, showing that you care is love. And this really strengthens relationships. So if you know, maybe a mother-in-law, if you have issues with your, you know, we all have issues with our loved ones, right? This will heal it without having to like bring up the old baggage. Like, I'm just going to love you right now. I don't care about the baggage. So it's very strengthening for relationships.
Yeah. How before we go, I just wanted to sort of talk a little bit about the fathers and sort of how they can kind of help, because obviously as a caregiver, I'm sure you've had many times where you've sort of tried to help the fathers and talk them through things. So
Yeah.
yeah, what advice do you sort of give them, and how can they best help their partners through this and also be okay themselves through this journey?
Yeah. That's so hard. And for me, yeah, just being there to take off the load from them and acknowledging that they're grieving too. That this is like they're not just so the family's not just grieving the loss of the baby, they're grieving the loss of the vision of their life, as you know, right? Like the life that they had is now kind of gone. And so helping them to be sort of in touch with their emotions. They may want to be just being strong for her and stuffing them down. So pulling them aside and like letting them like talk to me, like how can I support you? You know, that just in itself, I'm here to listen. It's hard for you, is so helpful for them to really let them for their feelings be expressed as we're going through it together. And I'm there with them. Yeah, and then just, you know, if they're open, like I can pass the baton, like, okay, well, here's the other healing things you could do. Maybe you can just rub her feet tonight and put the womb and swaddle her before bed, you know, and the other thing that I didn't mention, which is also in my book, is ritual, like doing rituals. And we talked about that before. But that is very healing. So the partners can do rituals together for the baby. So I mentioned a few different rituals that are very healing and ceremonies that you can do. So those kinds of things are really helpful for fathers and partners to something tangible for them because it's a symbolic object that perhaps they're planting a tree, you know, or there's just a few different like ideas that I give, but people can make up their own way of commemorating or honoring the life and honoring the journey that they're on. So that those things are really helpful for the partners too.
Yeah, and I think you know, for anyone like caregivers and partners, I think a lot of the time they want to do the fixing. They want to just fix it and like, but it's accepting that there is no fixing. Like,
Yeah.
the baby's gone and she has to go through her process of grieving, and whatever that looks like, you know, it's not you're not going to fix anything. You can't take anything away. You can't make it better. Like, she's going to go through a process, and you can either be there and be supportive of that, or you can not do that, and then, you know, it's not going to go very well for either of you, obviously. So yeah, the best way to kind of, I think, for partners is to just like accept that you can't fix it. And I know a lot of people find that really hard. Like, my husband found it hard. Like, he would just wanted me to be back to normal and like be okay. And I was like, yeah, it's not, doesn't work like that. Like, I'm different now. And he said to me the other day, he was like, I like, I loved you before, but I love you now as well. Like, the person who you've become through this, he was like, you've just grown so much and you're so amazing now. Like, and that, I'm not trying to like boost myself up or anything, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I have changed. Like, I do like me, and I do like what's happened. So even if you're in the thick of it right now and you're like, I hate the changes, I don't like who I am, if you actively work through it, you can get to that point of self-love, and your partner will see that growth and change in you. And, you know, it does get easier as the partner and as the mother going through it as well. So I think those things are important to remember, that, you know, it's hard right now in this moment, and you have amazing people like Shelley who can actually help you through that process, and how to be a caregiver, and how to kind of, you know, try and nurture and kind of bring that warmth back. You don't have to go through this really fully intense moment on your own. But it does get easier, and in that final stage you might find that you're okay. A lot of the time you change in a way where you kind of like the new you, even though you might not want to. You do.
Yes. Yeah. There's always nothing is ever always just bad, right? It's not, there's always growth, there's compassion, there's aspects of ourselves that we're learning through this process. It takes time to discover who we are becoming and how we've changed. And so that's beautiful that he recognized that. And maybe he's also noticing things about himself, but maybe not. But sometimes they do. They grow and they change, and it helps to ask. So like if you're somebody who is checking in, even like it's been a couple months, or maybe it's at the baby's due date, you knew that, you know, the baby's due, and they might be sad on that day. That's always a really good day to check in. And then you can ask questions like, you know, how has this baby changed you? Like, what's different about you? Like, there's really good thought-provoking questions a caregiver can ask that can ignite the positives that come out of something so devastating.
Yeah. And I think just pointing out those positives as well. Like, I know a lot of mums don't like the silver lining thing, and like they get really mad about that. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that there is beauty in the ugliness. Like, you know, and there's a lady that I follow, M is for Mama, and she says, you know, hard doesn't equal bad. And it's like what you said, like not everything bad is like, you know, so in these moments where we have a hard time, where really terrible things happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to equal something bad. Like, we can grow, we can become something, and we can make meaning from something horrible.
Yes.
And I think that's the only way to get through it. Like, if you just if it's all just horrible, then it's just horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make something beautiful out of it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And is there anything that you want to sort of say to anyone who's maybe in the throes of it right now, who's, you know, maybe their partner's going through it, and they're really struggling, and they're like, I just don't know what to do to support my partner in this. Like, I don't know how to be there for her. You know, maybe they don't feel it, maybe they do feel it. But is there any advice that you'd sort of give to them in this moment?
And that moment of, oh, I've been to that moment so many times. But just trust love. Trust your love is enough. And say that. Like, I don't know how to be here for you, but I love you so much, and I will do anything for you right now. So trust love. That's it.
That's beautiful. I think that's so, like, no one said that so far. Like, no one's you know, said trust love, and I think that's so lovely. You should put it on a t-shirt. But yeah, trust love. And really sometimes all you have to do is just be there, like we said, like just be in the room.
It's time.
Yeah, and you know, you can't fix it, and be okay about that. And you might not know what to say, and that's fine. You don't have to say anything.
No. Yeah. Aww.
Thank you so much for talking with me and doing what
Thank
you do. And I can't wait for your book, because I think it's going to be so helpful and healing to so many people. And I can definitely see it being one of those things that people like pass around. They're like, so this is how you can support me. This is how you can. And it's so It's so needed and so necessary. So thank you so much. And thank you for talking with me and being here and being part of this.
My honor. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you're doing this.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely, lovely
Okay.
day.
Thank you, Ella. Bye.
Bye.
Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.